The tunnels were quiet now, only the soft hum of the blue crystals filling the air. Elias sat with his back against the wall, his eyes half closed as exhaustion slowly took over. Beside him, the creature, now known as Kale, rested in silence. Its body emitted a gentle golden glow that made the dark room feel almost peaceful. For the first time since landing on Tarsus 9, Elias didn't feel fear. He felt curiosity. The creature that the Galactic Council had called a monster didn't behave like one. It had protected him, learned from him, even tried to speak his name. When morning light finally filtered through cracks above, Elias woke to find Kale already standing. The creature was staring at the tunnel entrance, sensors glowing faintly, as if scanning for movement. Elias stood up too. "Still clear?" he asked quietly. Kale looked back and gave a short hum, a sound Elias had begun to understand as yes. He smiled faintly. "Good, because we've got a long day ahead of us." Elias opened his datapad, scrolling through the recovered readings. The energy signal that drew the council here wasn't just from Kale, it came from deeper beneath the surface. Something was hidden below this planet's ruins. He glanced at Kale. "You were guarding something, weren't you?" Kale tilted its head, as if trying to remember. Then slowly, it pointed downward. Elias nodded. "All right. Let's go find out what's down there." The descent, the path below, was narrow, lined with thick pipes and ancient machinery still faintly alive after centuries. Elias used his wrist light to guide the way, while Kale walked behind, its glowing chest casting warm reflections across the walls. After hours of walking, they reached a massive chamber. In the center stood an old terminal surrounded by broken glass tubes and shattered cables. Symbols were carved into the metal floor similar to the ones Elias had seen on Kale's armor. Kale approached slowly, touching the console. The room responded with a low vibration, and suddenly the walls came alive with holographic light. Dozens of images flickered around them, tall alien figures, cities of crystal and metal, and children playing near a towering guardian that looked just like Kale. Elias stared in awe. This is your home." Kale's golden eyes glowed brighter as it stepped closer to one of the holograms. It reached out and touched an image of a small alien child hugging a smaller version of itself. The hologram shimmered, then replayed that same moment again and again. As if the machine could sense Kale's longing, Elias felt his chest tighten. "You were created to protect them, weren't you?" Kale turned to him and nodded once. The holograms shifted, showing battlefields filled with fire and smoke. Giant machines fought against dark, insect-like creatures. The alien creators were losing. To save their children, they built guardians like Kale, part living, part machine. But something went wrong. The enemy unleashed a weapon that corrupted the guardians' power cores. Most were destroyed. Kale survived. Elias whispered, "You fought for them. And when they were gone, you stayed behind." Kale's hum was low and heavy sad. It knelt beside the console, pressing a hand to its chest. The golden light dimmed for a moment, then flared again as the console responded, showing one final hologram, a message recorded by Kale's creators. The alien leader spoke in a soft, melodic language, but the translation system in Elias's suit began decoding it. "To the one who finds this, forgive us. We left you not because we wanted to, but because we had no choice. The darkness came faster than we could fight. You were our hope. If you still live, protect the light that remains. Protect life." The message faded, and silence returned. Elias stood still, trying to find words. Kale remained kneeling, motionless. The glow in its eyes softened to a pale gold. Elias understood then the creature had waited all these years, guarding the ruins, not knowing its creators were long gone. "You did what they asked," Elias said gently. "You protected this place. You kept the light alive." Kale looked up at him, the faint hum returning, softer than before. Elias smiled sadly. "They were wrong to call you a monster. Signals from above, but peace never lasted long on a world like Tarsus 9, while they explored the ruins." High above, Commander Rethvir's ship circled the planet. Inside the command deck, Technicians were analyzing new readings. "Commander, we've detected another energy surge beneath the surface," one reported. "It's similar to the creature's signature, but stronger." Rethar's eyes narrowed. "He's found something." Another officer turned toward him. "Sir, Captain Ward's vitals are still active. Should we attempt communication?" Rethvar slammed a clawed hand against the console. "No, he's compromised. The creature has infected him somehow. Prepare the bombardment coordinates." "But, sir," I said, "prepare them." The officer hesitated, then obeyed. Learning to speak back underground, Elias and Kale set up camp near the glowing console. Elias was adjusting his transmitter to record everything he had found. He wanted the truth to reach the council. He looked up at Kale. "If I can send this data, they'll know you're not a threat." Kale watched him quietly, then made a low hum, followed by a few struggling sounds that almost formed words. "Who, man?" "Safe." Elias froze. "You said that?" Kale repeated, slower this time. "Who? Man. Safe." Elias grinned. "Yes. Human safe. I'm safe." "You did good, Kale." The creature tilted its head as if pleased. Then it tried again. "Kyle guard." "Human." Elias nodded, moved by the effort. "Yeah, Kale, you guard human." For a moment, the air felt lighter. Two beings, once enemies, now sat side by side, learning each other's language. Elias told stories of Earth about blue oceans, green forests, and children who laughed under the rain. Kale listened in silence, humming softly, recording every word like sacred memory. The storm above's hours passed. Elias's transmitter began blinking. He frowned. "Signal interference?" Then a message broke through, static-filled, but clear enough. "Captain Ward. This is Commander Rethvar. Step away from the creature. You have disobeyed direct orders. Extraction is no longer an option. The Council has authorized orbital cleansing of your coordinates." Elias's heart stopped. "No," he looked at Kale. "They're going to bomb this place. They think you're a threat to the entire sector." Kale tilted its head in confusion. "Bomb." Elias grabbed his gear and started working fast. "We need to shut down that energy signal. They're tracking it." Kale knelt beside him and placed both hands on the console. Sparks of golden light spread through the circuits, and slowly, the energy readings began to fade. Elias's radio crackled again. "Captain Ward, this is your last warning." He turned it off. "Not today," he muttered. Kale's chest dimmed, and the creature looked at him with clear exhaustion. Elias quickly placed his hand on Kale's arm. "You did it. You saved us again." But then the ground began to shake. A faint rumble turned into a deep roar. The ceiling above cracked, dust falling like rain. Elias looked up. No, they started the bombardment. He grabbed his datapad and quickly transferred the holographic data into his memory drive. If they died here, the truth would die with them. Kale suddenly lifted Elias in its arms and ran through the collapsing tunnel. The sound of explosions echoed through the distance as fire rolled down from above. Elias shouted over the noise, "This way! There's a shaft up ahead." Kale followed his gesture, sprinting faster than any human could. The air burned with heat as part of the ceiling gave way, fire washing over the ruins. Kale shielded Elias with its body, taking the brunt of the blast. When they finally reached the open shaft, Kale jumped down several levels, landing hard but stable. Elias coughed through the smoke. You're insane." Kale tilted its head again and said in a broken but gentle voice, "Human safe." Elias laughed weakly, even as tears stung his eyes. "Yeah, you got that right." The hidden chamber, as the dust settled, they found themselves in another forgotten chamber, smaller, but filled with strange glowing pods. Inside each pod was a tiny light, weak, but still alive. Elias walked closer, scanning one of the pods. His eyes widened. "These are energy seeds. Fragments of the same life energy from your creators?" Kale touched one of the pods gently, its golden eyes softening. The pod glowed brighter at its touch, responding to its guardian. Elias understood then. This was what Kale had been protecting all along. Not weapons, but life. The last remnant of a lost civilization, he whispered. This changes everything. The council needs to see this. Kale looked at him and nodded slowly, as if agreeing. Elias placed a hand on Kale's chest. We'll find a way to show them. They'll know you're not their enemy. But far above, the bombardment continued. The surface shook violently, and the tunnels began to crumble again. Elias knew they couldn't stay. He grabbed his pack. We need to get out of here, Kale. We'll take the data to the surface and send it to every channel I can reach. Kale stood tall, its golden light flaring once more. Kale, guard Human, it said firmly, its voice stronger than before. Elias smiled despite the danger. And Human will guard Kale. Together, they turned toward the rising dust and falling debris, ready to fight their way out of the dying planet above them. In orbit, the Council's ships continued to fire. Unaware that their so-called monster had once again done what it was made for: protect life. The air above Tar-Cisnine trembled with the distant roar of orbital bombardment. Dust and energy sparks rained through cracks in the tunnels as Elias and Kale scrambled toward a hidden maintenance shaft. Every step was a battle against falling debris and scorching heat. But Elias's mind raced faster than his legs. We can't stay underground, he shouted over the rumble. We need the surface, or the Council will erase everything here. Kale's massive frame moved with surprising speed, weaving around collapsed metal beams and avoiding molten sparks. Its golden eyes glowed brightly, illuminating their path. Elias marveled again at the creature's agility and intelligence. Every movement was precise, every decision careful. Finally, they reached the Exeter-reinforced shaft door, partially blocked by rubble. Elias glanced up at Kale. You think you can move it? Kale extended its arm, energy pulsing faintly from its chest. With a gentle push, the massive debris shifted aside, and the shaft opened into a jagged cliff overlooking the storm-ravaged landscape of Tar-Cisnine. The sky above was a swirl of lightning and smoke, but the surface was clear enough for them to move. Elias climbed out first, surveying the scene. Dozens of Council drones hovered, scanning for energy signatures. Above them, a strike team descended in armored dropships, moving like predators intent on their target. Kale, Elias said quietly, we don't have time for hesitation. We go now. Kale stepped onto the rocky surface, massive boots sinking slightly into the soft, scorched ground. Its chest flared with light, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Elias felt a strange mixture of fear and awe. They were outnumbered. Outgunned, but not hopeless. The Strike Force Commander Rethfer led the Strike Force. Descending carefully on a cliffside ledge, the team's weapons were pointed directly at Kale, their scanners painting the massive creature in red warnings. Captain Ward, Rethfer's voice boomed through the cum. Step away from the entity. You will not interfere with Council orders. Elias raised his hands, standing in front of Kale. I'm not going to let you kill it. The strike team hesitated. Some of them glanced at Kale, noting the calm in its posture and the way it had not attacked. Still, Rethfer moved forward. It is dangerous. You do not understand what it is capable of. Elias shook his head. I understand it more than you ever will. It's not a weapon, it's alive. It has feelings, memories, and it saved me. You're the real danger here. Kale's chest light flickered at his words. Slowly, it stepped closer to Elias, positioning itself as a shield. Its massive hands lifted slightly, not as a threat but as a barrier. The strike team's sensors were confused by the energy fluctuations. Weapons locked on and then released, unable to target the living being accurately. Commander. One officer whispered its energy. It's changing. Our weapons aren't responding properly, Rethfer growled. Don't hesitate. Use everything. The choice Elias knew this was the moment of truth. Kale could take the fire they had survived worse, but he didn't want unnecessary destruction. He turned toward the strike team, shouting over the wind and thunder. Look at it. It's not a weapon. It's not a monster. You've been lied to? You think it's dangerous, but it's just defending what it was made to protect. Kale's golden eyes flashed brightly in agreement. It stepped forward slightly, making no aggressive movement. The strike team hesitated. For the first time, they saw the creature as Elias did, a being of life and memory. It's not destruction. One drone fired a warning shot, but Kale raised a hand and projected a soft pulse of energy. The shot was absorbed harmlessly, flickering into harmless sparks. Another drone paused. A few soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, confusion spreading through ranks. Elias seized the moment. You're supposed to follow orders, yes, but you're also supposed to protect life. If you shoot now, you destroy what could be the key to understanding a whole lost civilization. Rethver barked in frustration. Enough talk. Attack. Kale did not attack. Instead, it moved carefully between Elias and the incoming fire, absorbing blasts and redirecting energy safely into the ground. Sparks danced harmlessly around it. Soldiers were stunned. Watching the energy flow like controlled lightning, the data reveal Elias reached into his pack and activated his memory drive. Holographic projections of Kale's creators, the holographic logs, and the children it had guarded flashed into the sky. Bright light illuminated the battlefield as everyone on Tarsis 9 could see the images. The Guardian, the lost civilization, the children, and the destruction caused by war. Not by Kale? Gasps echoed through the strike team. Some of them stepped back, eyes wide. Even Rethver froze, scanning the projections in disbelief. Elias shouted over the noise, "This is the truth. Kale is not your enemy. It has protected life for centuries, even when left alone. If you destroy it now, all this history dies with it." The images showed Kale shielding the children, tending to energy cores, and standing between its creators and the enemy, proof that it had been a guardian, not a predator. The turn of the tide, the strike team slowly lowered their weapons. Confusion spread through ranks. Elias stepped forward, raising his hands in peace. "See what it is?" he shouted. "Not a weapon, not a monster. Kale is proof that life can survive even when abandoned. Life can endure." Kale extended a massive hand toward the projections. Energy from its chest resonated with the holograms, amplifying the images, making them impossible to ignore. Even Rethvar hesitated as the golden light reflected off the armored surfaces of the ships. One young officer stepped forward. "Oh," in her eyes. It's alive, and it's protecting everything." Elias smiled faintly. "Exactly. You don't have to kill it to follow orders. You can choose to understand. You can choose life, sacrifice, and protection." The orbital bombardment had not stopped. Fire and debris rained down across the rocky landscape. Kale raised itself fully, using its massive body to shield Elias from falling rocks and sparks. Its energy pulsed like a heart, creating a protective dome around them. Elias crouched beneath it, looking up at the Guardian. "You don't have to do this alone," he whispered. "I'm here with you." Kale's glowing chest pulsed brighter, as if acknowledging the bond. It stood firm, unflinching, holding back the destructive forces above. Elias realized then that this creature once feared was now the savior of not just him, but potentially all of the lives still clinging to Tarsisne's history. The Council witnesses from orbit. The Council's sensors recorded everything. Holographic displays showed Kale protecting Elias, the glowing pods, the preserved history of a lost civilization. The images spread quickly through the communications network, reaching every major station in the system. Back on the surface, Rethver's claws trembled. His orders had been clear, but the evidence was undeniable. For the first time, he questioned the Council's judgment. One officer whispered, "It's incredible. It's not a weapon. It's intelligent." Elias looked at Kale. "You see? They're beginning to understand. It's working." Kale's chest light flared softly in response, as if acknowledging the hope that had been born. A new beginning, as the storm began to calm. The last blasts of orbital fire fizzled out harmlessly against Kale's energy shield. The strike team stepped back, finally lowering all weapons. Elias and Kale stood together, golden light casting long shadows across the scorched ground. Elias placed a hand on Kale's arm. You did it. You survived, protected history, and changed their minds. Kale made a low hum, almost like a sigh of relief. From orbit, the council recorded the moment for history. Kale was no longer a monster. They saw a guardian, a protector, a being of loyalty, courage, and intelligence. Elias glanced at Kale. The galaxy is watching now. They will know the truth. Monsters exist only in fear, not in heart. And you have the heart of a hero. Kale's golden eyes met his. For the first time, Elias felt that word could apply not to humans, not to aliens, but to this being who had waited centuries to be understood. Together, they began walking toward the wrecked dropships, toward the future, toward a galaxy that would finally see the value of compassion and courage, and the truth about what humans could see in the unknown. The storms over Tarsus 9 had finally subsided, leaving the barren planet eerily quiet. Smoke rose in soft plumes from the scorched ground, but the once threatening bombardment had stopped. Elias stood atop a cliffside, surveying the aftermath. Below him, Kale moved slowly, its massive golden chest glowing softly, scanning the surrounding area for any remaining danger. It had been hours since the strike team had withdrawn. The Council's ships hovered at a cautious distance, recording every movement. Holographic projections from Elias's memory drive floated in the skies above, replaying Kale's story, the guardian of children, the survivor of a lost civilization, the protector of life. Elias stepped forward, raising his hands to signal Kale, "Come on, let's show them what you really are." Kale's enormous head turned, golden eyes meeting his. With a deep, steady hum, it followed him. Together they walked across the scorched plateau, toward the Council's observation ships. Every step of Kale's massive feet caused dust and small rocks to scatter, but its movements were careful, deliberate, non-threatening. Recognition Commander Rethver had positioned his team at a safe distance, still wary of Kale's enormous size and power, but as Elias and Kale approached, the holographic evidence replayed across every officer's visor. Children in Kale's care, scenes of protection, and the glowing pods of preserved life. It was undeniable. Elias stepped forward and spoke clearly, projecting his voice through the ship's speakers. "This is Kale, not a monster, not a weapon. It is a guardian, a survivor, a protector. Everything you have feared is a misunderstanding." Kale tilted its head, watching the reactions of the Council officers above. Some lowered their weapons, staring in awe. Others whispered to each other, trying to reconcile what they had thought with what they now saw. Rethver's voice finally came through, hesitant and controlled. "Captain Ward, are you certain? This being, it protected you?" Elias nodded. "More than that. It protected life children, memories, the last traces of a civilization. It didn't attack anyone. It saved me." A soft hum emerged from Kale's chest, resonating in the air. The sound was gentle but powerful, echoing in the canyon below like a heartbeat. The Council officers exchanged glances. They had expected a beast, but what they saw was intelligence, loyalty, restraint. The first step toward peace, one of the junior officers floated closer to Kale, cautiously reaching a hand forward. Kale did not flinch. Instead, it lowered its enormous head, allowing a human-sized touch. The officer hesitated, then lightly tapped Kale's glowing armor. The light flared gently, almost as if acknowledging the gesture. Elias smiled, watching the scene. "See? It understands peace, not war. It can choose just like us." Rethver's voice was quieter now. Perhaps we misjudged it," Elias nodded firmly. "No, Commander. You did misjudge it. But now you have a choice. Protect life or destroy it. Which will it be?" The silence stretched across the plateau. Kale's chest light pulsed slowly, rhythmically, almost like it was waiting for their answer. Finally, the Council relented. Orders were given to stand down. Weapons were retracted. The first official recognition of Kale's sentience echoed through the comms. It was no longer considered a threat, but a guardian worthy of protection. Elias exhaled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Kale's hum deepened in response, a soft vibration that carried trust and relief. A new home days passed. The council allowed Kale to remain on Tarsesnine, supervising the restoration of the ancient chamber that contained the glowing pods, the remnants of Kale's creators, its civilization. Scientists and historians arrived to study the pods and the holographic archives. They documented everything, from Kale's actions to the evidence of the lost alien culture. Elias stayed by Kale's side, guiding the council through the history he had uncovered. He explained how Kale had survived, how it had protected life, and how it had saved him countless times. His words carried weight because he had lived through it. Kale, in turn, began to learn more about humans. Elias shared stories of Earth's oceans, forests, mountains, and the people who worked to understand the unknown rather than destroy it. Kale hummed softly, absorbing every detail, storing it within its vast memory banks. One day, Elias placed a small human flag beside Kale's foot. "You're part of this galaxy now," he said softly, "and so are we part of your story." Kale tilted its head, chest lights flickering warmly, as if acknowledging that it understood belonging. The symbol of humanitine news of Elias and Kale's story spread quickly across the colonies. Holonet broadcasts showed the Guardian standing next to its human companion, golden light reflecting off the barren landscape. People everywhere began to speak of humanity differently, not as mere soldiers or reckless explorers, but as beings capable of understanding, compassion, and courage. Children in distant colonies watched the footage with wide eyes. Teachers told stories of the human who refused to kill and the creature that learned to trust. The legend grew. Humans could see the hearts of those others feared, and in doing so, they could change the galaxy. Elias became a quiet symbol. He never sought glory, medals, or recognition. Instead, he focused on Kale, helping the Guardian adjust to a galaxy it had never known. Together, they repaired broken technology, documented the lost civilization, and taught new generations about the value of life, no matter its form. Kale, once feared, now became a protector not only of Tarsesinine's secrets, but also of Elias, and all who came to understand it. Trials and friendship, even with the Council's recognition, challenges remained. Some factions still feared Kale's power, but Elias always stood by the Guardian's side, reasoning with leaders, explaining Kale's actions, and proving that it could be trusted. Over time, Kale began responding to humans not only with restraint, but with cooperation. One evening, as the sun set over Tarsesinine's rocky horizon, Elias and Kale stood together on the cliffside. "You know," Elias said quietly, "I never thought I'd find a friend in a creature they called a monster." Kale's chest pulsed softly, the hum a gentle vibration that seemed almost like laughter. It extended a massive hand, and Elias took it carefully. "We understand each other," Elias said, smiling. "And that's what matters." Kale tilted its head, golden light reflecting in Elias's eyes. The bond between human and Guardian was more than survival, it was friendship, trust, and respect. A legacy of understanding. Months passed. Scientists reconstructed parts of Kale's creator city using data and holographic archives. Kale became the official Guardian, assisting in the restoration and teaching humans about the technology and culture it had preserved for centuries. Elias watched as young humans learned from Kale, mimicking its careful movements and listening intently to its history. Children asked questions, not out of fear, but out of wonder, and everywhere they went, Elias reminded them, the measure of a civilization isn't in how it fights, but in how it protects life, understands the unknown, and trusts even when it is hard. Kale hummed in agreement, the golden glow in its chest steady and bright, a beacon of hope, proof that life could endure, and that compassion could overcome fear. The galaxy remembers years later. Historians recorded the event as the turning point in human perception across the galaxy. Elias and Kale were remembered not for war or destruction, but for understanding, courage, and friendship. Humanity had shown the galaxy that monsters exist only when fear blinds reason, and heroes exist when compassion guides strength. Kale's chest light became a symbol in human colonies, a reminder of what could happen when a human chooses to protect instead of destroy. Children painted murals of the human and the golden-eyed guardian, telling the story to each new generation, and Elias, older now, stood with Kale on the same cliff where they had faced their first strike team together. "You changed the galaxy," said softly. Kale's chest flared brighter, a warm, comforting glow. Its hum filled the air like music, responding to the sentiment. "Yes," Elias whispered, "because sometimes seeing the heart of another, that is the greatest power of all." As the twin suns of Tarsisnine set on the horizon, human and guardian stood side by side, casting long shadows across the rocky plains. The galaxy had watched, learned, and changed. And somewhere in the stars, the creators of Kale might have finally known that their hope had not been lost. In every corner of space, when people spoke of humanity, they no longer spoke only of strength or cunning. They said, "They see hearts. They choose life. They are the ones who change the universe." Gal, the guardian, would hum softly beside its human forever a song of trust, friendship, and the enduring light of life. The Zarn Dominion was one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. For centuries, they had conquered planet after planet, crushing every species that dared to stand in their way. Their armies were vast, their technology unmatched, and their cruelty legendary. When the Zarn arrived, civilizations fell like dust in the wind. Now, their attention had turned toward a small blue planet on the edge of the Orion Arm, Earth to the Zarn High Council. Humanity was nothing more than a curiosity. They had detected radio signals, satellites, and primitive space stations orbiting their planet. Humans had barely reached beyond their moon. To the Zarn, such a species was hardly worth notice. But protocol demanded an evaluation before invasion, so the Council sent one being the most efficient killer in the Dominion, Korvac. Korvac was not born in the usual sense. He was created. His body was built for combat, strong, fast, and covered with adaptive armor that could shift color to match its surroundings. His eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light, and his brain had been enhanced to process information faster than most computers. To the Zarn, he was the perfect weapon. His mission was simple: land on Earth unnoticed. Study the humans' reaction to unknown threats. Eliminate a few targets to observe their military response. Report back whether humanity was a threat or another species to enslave. The Dominion did not expect him to fail. No one had ever survived Korvac's test before. His ship entered Earth's atmosphere in the dead of night. The stealth hull absorbed radar and heat signatures, making it invisible to human sensors. He landed in a forested area near what his scanners identified as a military installation. The air was thick with oxygen and strange scents: soil, leaves, fuel, and something faintly sweet he couldn't identify. The planet felt alive in a way few others did. But Korvac ignored the feeling. He had a mission. He stepped from his craft, his black armor blending perfectly with the night. A faint shimmer was the only sign he existed at all. His boots left no tracks. Even the animals nearby sensed his presence and fled into the darkness. Korvac's first task was observation. He moved silently through the trees until he reached a ridge overlooking the military base. Dozens of lights glowed below. He could see humans in uniform, patrolling with weapons. He zoomed in on their faces, tired, alert, disciplined. He recognized organization, though primitive compared to the Dominion. They rely on teamwork, he recorded in his neural log. But their technology is simple: projectile weapons, combustion vehicles, no sign of plasma or energy weapons. Still, there was something about their behavior that unsettled him. These humans were not afraid of the night. They moved with purpose, communicating through small hand signals and radios. They didn't seem as primitive as their tools suggested. Korvac decided to test them. He took a small sphere from his belt, a pulse emitter, and activated it. The sphere emitted a high-frequency sound that disrupted all nearby electronic systems. Within seconds, alarms on the base began to blare. Lights flickered and died. The power grid collapsed. Perfect. He watched through thermal vision as soldiers scrambled to respond. He expected panic, chaos, confusion, but instead, they adapted. Generators powered on. Backup lights came online. Patrols switched to manual communication using flashlights to signal across the compound. No one ran. No one screamed. They followed training efficiently, almost instinctively. Unexpected discipline, Korvac noted, narrowing his eyes. Then something else caught his attention. A group of humans, engineers, he guessed, rushed to the central power hub. They began working together with remarkable coordination. One of them, a woman with brown hair tied back and grease on her hands, started giving orders faster than Korvac's translator could process. Within minutes, the system rebooted. Korvac frowned. Recovery time, 83 seconds. Efficiency, above predicted levels. He was beginning to see why the Council wanted confirmation before attacking this world. For his next test, Korvac decided to eliminate a target. He moved closer to the base's perimeter, silent as shadow. 2 guards stood by a gate, talking quietly. They looked relaxed but not careless. He could take them both out in less than 2 seconds. His orders allowed for casualties. The goal was to measure response, not mercy. He readied his wrist blade and lunged. But before he could strike, one of the guards turned suddenly, raising his weapon. Korvac froze, his cloaking still active. Yet the human fired. The bullet passed through the air just inches from Korvac's head. Motion sensors. The soldier shouted to his partner. "We've got movement." The other guard called for backup. Korvac jumped back, surprised. How had they detected him? No species had ever spotted him while cloaked. He scanned his armor, perfectly calibrated. Yet these humans, they sensed him. When floodlights swept the area, he retreated into the forest, unseen again. Within minutes, a dozen soldiers arrived with tracking dogs. The animals barked, their noses pointing directly toward his position. Unbelievable. Even the creatures on this world were alert to danger in ways machines couldn't match. He deactivated his cloak, leaping through the trees until he reached his ship. For the first time in his career, he felt something he had never experienced. Not fear, but curiosity mixed with doubt. Who were these humans? Korvac decided to change tactics. Instead of attacking the soldiers, he would test the thinkers, the scientists who had restored the power earlier. If they were the minds behind this resilience, understanding them was vital. He entered the base again, this time through the ventilation system. His stealth systems allowed him to pass cameras undetected. He reached a laboratory filled with glowing screens and machines he couldn't fully understand. Despite their crude appearance, the humans had built surprisingly advanced sensors and communication devices. The same woman from before the engineer stood at a console, analyzing the blackout data. Her name tag read, Dr. Evelyn Hart. She must be leading this unit, Korvac whispered to himself. He approached silently, planning to observe up close. But as he stepped forward, his foot brushed against a metal cable. It made a faint clang. The woman turned instantly, grabbing a wrench from the table. "Who's there?" she demanded. Korvac froze. She shouldn't have been able to hear that his sound dampeners were active. Yet she looked directly at him, eyes narrowing. As if she could feel his presence. Her heart rate increased, but she didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward slowly, watching the air shimmer around him. Then she threw the wrench hard. The tool hit a nearby console, creating a magnetic surge. Korvac's cloak flickered, revealing his form for a brief second. Dr. Hart didn't waste time. She slammed a button on the wall. Magnetic coils surrounded the lab, creating a containment field. Korvac tried to escape, but the field held him. His systems struggled, but the magnetism disrupted his armor's power source. She had trapped him. "Got you," she said quietly. Staring at the alien figure now fully visible inside the energy field, Korvac stared back through his helmet visor, his mind racing. This was not supposed to happen. No other species had ever captured him alive. He studied the woman before him. She was small compared to him, fragile by appearance, yet her eyes showed no fear. Instead, they burned with curiosity and determination. Human female, he muttered. Unexpected bravery. High intelligence. Outside the lab, alarms began to blare again as soldiers rushed toward the scene. Dr. Hart never looked away from her captive. Whatever you are, she said calmly, you've picked the wrong planet. For the first time in his long service to the Zarn Dominion, Korvac felt something strange, a sense that this mission was not going to be simple. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not predictable. And deep down, beneath layers of training and pride, Korvac felt a flicker of something he couldn't name. Respect. Dr. Evelyn Hart had seen many strange things in her career. Meteorites that hummed, machines that thought, and codes no one could decrypt. But nothing compared to what stood before her now. Inside the containment chamber was a tall, armored figure unlike anything she had ever seen. Its armor shimmered with black and silver hues, changing slightly with every movement. The shape was humanoid, 2 legs, 2 arms. A head, but everything else was alien. The creature stood perfectly still, silent and unreadable. Its helmet reflected the light like dark glass. It wasn't just a visitor. It was something built for war. The soldiers outside the lab surrounded the area, weapons ready. But Evelyn raised her hand, stopping them. Don't shoot, she said. It's trapped. And if it's intelligent, we can learn more by talking than fighting. Colonel Reeves, the base commander, frowned. Doctor, that thing tried to break into a military base. You really think it came for a chat? Evelyn kept her eyes on the alien. I think it came to test us. The alien tilted its head slightly, as if it understood. Korvac's processors worked furiously. The magnetic field had paralyzed his armor systems. His strength was reduced, and his cloaking was offline. The humans had trapped him with nothing but a few tools and clever thinking. He watched as the woman, Dr. Hart, moved closer to the containment glass. Her expression was calm but filled with curiosity. Her heart rate was elevated, but her voice was steady. He respected that. She spoke into a device near her mouth. We're recording all readings. Oxygen is stable. Radiation normal? Life signs inside the chamber. Consistent with high metabolism. Do you think it can understand you? Reeves asked. I don't know, she replied. But if it came here, it must have intelligence. And if it understands us, maybe it has a purpose. Korvac's translator was working now. The human speech was strange but logical. Within seconds, he could understand her words. He decided to test communication. His voice was deep and metallic, filtered through his helmet. You captured me. Quickly, he said. Everyone in the room froze. The soldiers tightened their grips on their rifles. Dr. Hart's eyes widened. It speaks English? Korvac continued, his tone calm. Your magnetic field is effective. Unexpected. Colonel Reeves stepped forward. Identify yourself. I am Korvac of the Zarn Dominion, he replied. I came to evaluate your species. Evaluate, Reeves repeated, confused. Evaluate for what? Korvac paused. To determine if you are a threat? The room went silent. The meaning behind his words was clear. He was not a traveler. He was a tester, and there would be others. Later that day, the alien was moved to a reinforced research chamber. Soldiers guarded every entrance. Scientists filled the observation room, watching from behind thick glass. Dr. Hart stayed at the front, leading the study. Korvac sat quietly on a metal bench inside his cell. His armor emitted soft pulses of light as it repaired minor damage. He could have tried to break free, but part of him didn't want to. He was curious about these humans, their courage, their cooperation, their way of thinking. Dr. Hart started the first conversation. Why did you come here? She asked. Korvac looked at her through the glass. Because your planet sent signals into space? The Dominion noticed. We investigate all emerging civilizations. What happens after the investigation? If we find potential for danger, Korvac said, the Dominion neutralizes the threat before it grows. So you came to see if we're dangerous, Evelyn said slowly. What do you think so far? Korvac's eyes glowed faintly. You are different. Most species panic when confronted by the unknown. You adapt. You fight back. You think, Reeves folded his arms. Sounds like you didn't expect that. No, Korvac admitted. No one has ever caught me before. The room fell silent again. The alien wasn't boasting. It was telling the truth. Evelyn leaned closer to the microphone. You said you serve a dominion. What is it like? A vast empire, he replied. It conquers or destroys. That is its nature. I was made to serve it, to test worlds before the fleets arrive. Do you enjoy that? She asked quietly. Korvac hesitated for a long time before answering. I do not know. I was created to obey. Enjoyment is not part of my function. There was something about the way he said it, almost thoughtful, almost uncertain. Evelyn saw a trace of something human in that moment. The smallest spark of doubt. Over the next few days, Korvac remained under observation. The humans ran tests, carefully and respectfully. They analyzed his armor, his physiology, and his language. But they avoided harming him. He noticed something strange about them, even when afraid. They joked, smiled, and worked together. He couldn't understand how a species so emotional could be so efficient. One morning, while the scientists were running diagnostics, a power fluctuation struck the base again. The lights flickered, and an explosion shook the floor. The alarms blared. Intrusion detected in Hangar 2. Dr. Hart ran to the control console. What happened? Unknown drones, a soldier shouted. Something came from orbit, not ours. Korvac's sensors activated instantly. He recognized the energy signature. Those are Zarn reconnaissance drones, he said. They have come to recover me. Recover? Reeves asked sharply. They think I failed, Korvac said. They will destroy this base to remove evidence. Ow! The soldiers outside exchanged nervous looks. Reeves cursed. How do we stop them? Korvac stood up. Let me out. Evelyn turned to him. If we release you, how do we know you won't attack us? Korvac met her eyes through the glass. If I wanted you dead, you would already be. But if I do nothing, your people die for certain. Let me fight them. It is my responsibility. Reeves looked at Evelyn. Your call, Doctor. She took a deep breath. Every instinct told her this was a terrible idea, but every second counted. She pressed the release button. The containment field dropped. Korvac stepped forward. You have my word, he said. I will not harm your kind. Then he moved fast. The moment he was free, he sprinted down the corridor toward the hangar, his armor glowing with power. The soldiers followed behind, weapons ready, but not aimed at him. In the hangar, smoke and sparks filled the air. Small alien drones floated in through the breach, firing energy bolts at anything that moved. Human troops took cover and returned fire with rifles and grenades. Korvac jumped into the chaos. His armor shifted color, adapting to the environment. With precision strikes, he tore through the drones, disabling them one by one. His movements were fast and graceful, every motion exact. Dr. Hart watched from a control screen. She couldn't believe her eyes. The same being, who had been their prisoner now, fought to protect them. Enemy drones neutralized, Korvac reported after several minutes. He turned toward the soldiers. They will send more if they detect failure. You must hide your base. Reeves wiped sweat from his forehead. We'll move operations underground. Korvac nodded. Good. You adapt quickly again. Later, when the base was secure, Evelyn met Korvac in the corridor. He stood quietly, watching the sun rise through a shattered window. The golden light reflected off his armor, making it look almost human. You saved lives today, she said softly. He turned to her. I prevented unnecessary loss. It was logical, was it? She asked. Or did you choose it? Korvac didn't answer at first. Perhaps both, he finally said. Your people. They fight not only with strength, but with spirit. It is difficult to define, Evelyn smiled faintly. We fight for each other. For home. For freedom, Korvac repeated the word slowly. Freedom. I have heard of it, but I have never known it. She looked at him curiously. Maybe you will. That night, Korvac sat alone in his cell again, though the door was no longer locked. He could have left if he wanted to. Instead, he stayed, thinking about what he had seen. The humans were unpredictable, clever, emotional, stubborn, and united. They were unlike any race he had ever tested. Most species broke under pressure. Humans only grew stronger. He remembered Dr. Hart's words. We fight for each other. It echoed in his mind like an unanswered question. The Zarn fought for power. The humans fought for one another. Which was stronger? For the first time in his existence, Korvac didn't have a clear answer. He looked out the window again, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, the Dominion was watching, waiting for his report. And for the first time, Korvac wasn't sure what he would tell them.